You don't often get the chance to be equal with your parents, but I got this opportunity when I learnt how to sail alongside my dad and when I learnt Spanish with my mum. It's strange because you see them battle the same things that you're battling and make the same silly mistakes as you are making, and you sort of go on a learning journey with them and you realise they're not, in fact, perfect and they're only human, and it brings you so much closer together with them. Now, most 13-year-olds don't get the opportunity to see their parents in this way, but I was very lucky, and you may be wondering how I saw them in this way. And it's because my family are a crazy family. And one of the many crazy things that we've done is take a year out of our lives to go travelling. We packed up and left, leaving behind all that was familiar and plunged into the unknown. Between September 2011 and September 2012, I think that I spent a total of 3 days away from my parents. 3 days, that was it. And for most teenagers, I'm guessing that would be their idea of their worst nightmare. But for me, it was just the most incredible thing, because I learnt stories about their lives which completely changed my perception of them. And I also realised how similar I am to my mum, how similar I am to my dad, and how incredibly different they are to one another. I always joke about the fact that they only have 3 things in common. That's the fact that they like travelling, prawns, and they have a child together. And sometimes I think that they will just never get out of my head.
Hi, Liyaan.
I've actually invited my dad to come and share his side of our crazy story.
One of the first things that people ask me is, why did you do it? How come you decided to take a year off? And to tell you the honest truth, it just came out from nowhere, this idea. But once it was in front of us, it seemed absolutely compelling. Life was good. We were living in Geneva. Everyone was happy. But there was a sense of a life half lived. I had so many dreams. I was turning 50. I wanted to sail an ocean. I wanted to become a screenwriter. I wanted to travel with Liyaan across the world.
So naturally, when my dad first proposed the idea, I thought it was fantastic. It meant no more school, no more having to wake up early, and definitely no more maths, which is the best bit, I have to say. But then I started to think about it, and I realised all that I'd be leaving behind. I'd be leaving behind my home, my friends, the comfort of my own bed, and that's quite a scary thought, because we'd be in constant movement for a whole year without really having a home to go back to, and it kind of frightened me. So about 3 months after my dad initially had the idea, we left. My dad left his job, my mum quit hers too, and then we packed up the house and left just like that. We visited 26 countries in total, but that's not really what we're here to talk to you about today. We're here to talk to you about the thing that barely gets any of the attention, and that's what happens afterwards, when you finally return back to reality.
Liyaan was both excited and scared of leaving school. For me, it was quite different. I thought the more and more she's at school and she's taught things, the less and less opportunity she has to learn for herself. I wanted her to see with her own eyes. I wanted her to feel with her own heart. I wanted her to make her own choices. I'd rather that she didn't just learn history from a book, but she could have the opportunity kind of to go to places and events that shaped history. I didn't want her to learn geography from a book. I'd rather that she had the sense of how one single river could feed a whole continent. So when we went to Africa for the first time on this trip,
we in fact went by sailing boat with my parents, and it gave me a really good sense of exactly how far away Europe is from Africa. And I have to say, I felt like I was discovering it from the first time. And so now when I look at a map, I realise that I know exactly how far the 2 continents are away from each other, and I know how difficult of a journey it can really be.
And as we see these days the kind of tragedy of the boats, the refugee boats that are crossing the Mediterranean, I know that Liyaan knows exactly how dangerous that journey is, but also, hopefully, she has a sense of why people still risk their lives to make it.
So for the majority of the countries that we visited, it was actually illegal to be 13 years old and out of full-time education. And I'd constantly tell my dad this, but he'd always respond to me very calmly and say, but who's going to catch us? We're not in any country. We actually created a sort of a little universe of our own, in which we felt completely invincible. So like my dad said, on the year, I got a completely different kind of education. I learned all about sailing, diving, Spanish, how to make wine, how to keep a blog, and I even discovered my very strange love for lichen. And now, if I put all of those things together, will I find something useful to do with my life? Who knows?
There are thousands of memories I have of the trip. Small little memories like seeing a young girl sort of sharing an ice cream with her dog. the blue of the sea, this unfathomable blue of the sea that seemed to follow us everywhere on this journey. A lady with 3 llamas waiting for a train at 5,000 meters in Peru. But the 2 things that I really sort of learned on this journey were the 2 big challenges that I had. One was to sail across an ocean, and the second one was to write a screenplay from scratch and to take it up to Hollywood. Both of these have become kind of badges of honor for me, because I found that even at my age, I could learn how to do something from scratch and do quite well at it. So the first time when I was in Hollywood, at the studios with 8 other British screenwriters, an agent said to me, "Tarun, I like your script. Let's see more of it." That was the first time, and the second time when I was at the helm of a 72-foot yacht in the darkness, 22 knots. We were doing 22 knots at the time, and it was a pitching sea. There were 18 people in the boat, all feeling safe. Those are the 2 times that I felt a sense of personal fulfillment that I really can't express. I also realized that all I had to do was get rid of my own personal inhibitions, and everything was possible.
You might be able to tell by now that my dad likes to romanticize things. So first, let me clear up a few little things. When we sailed across the Atlantic, it was not on a yacht. It was on a boat. So my dad and I had very different experiences on the boat. He loved it. He would sit at the snake pit at night and watch the incredible sky and all the stars, whereas I threw up for about 8 days straight. I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to do my shifts and be confronted by flying fish coming straight at me in a deadly attack. But now, after the year, I didn't go home to Geneva with my parents, but instead I came to boarding school here in England. I grew up here from the ages of 2 to 8, and I thought that perhaps returning to a familiar culture would make the transition much easier. But I'm slowly starting to realise that I've grown up at a completely different pace to everyone and everything here. And in fact, I'm not really calling this place home anymore, but home for me now is, funnily enough, in Argentina.
It was very, very difficult coming back. I mean, first of all, we had to drop Liyaan and Haileybury, and this was not part of the original plan. We thought we'd take her home with us. But also, even more difficult was coming back to work, because I was coming back to work which I had outgrown. I was not ready to go back into the same box. It was very scary, because over the year, both my wife and me had stopped working. We had spent all our savings. Liyaan was at Haileybury. We had to put food on the table. And I was really caught in, because I could not go back to my work. And then I realized there's only one thing I need to do, is to actually decide what is it that I want to do. And so I had this preposterous idea that this organization, the Red Cross that I work with, I could actually think of better ways in which they could do something. I wanted to change fundamentally the way Red Cross worked in conflict situations. And I went with this idea to the people in our organization. And amazingly, they listened to me. And that's actually when my journey really began. Suddenly, I was working well outside my comfort zone, having to do things I'd never done before. The journey had actually moved inside. And the thing that really surprised me about this is that all the same rules applied. You have to travel light, you have to be brave, you have to learn how to cope with any kind of situation, and most of all, you have to be optimistic, insanely optimistic.
So throughout the year, we went to countries, some that we liked, some that we didn't, but I think the ones that we loved the most were the ones that really accepted us for who we were and allowed us to be who we chose to be. And the main thing that I learned throughout the whole year is that no matter where you go in the world, you will always find like-minded people who will allow you to bloom, and you just need to find them and stick with them. And so Dad was quite surprised when I asked to apply for this TED Talk, because he knows that the trip is something that I don't really like to talk about very much. But it was our time as a family to connect and create a little universe of our own, which we could escape to whenever we felt like escaping from this one. But Dad, of course, would disagree with me, and so it's the beginning of me trying to find my voice. Thank you.
Thank you.